pretty much last August. And we started looking at, we studied Base, obviously. It was a very successful launch by OP Stack. We saw sort of like Celestia come to the market, and we're like, okay, let's just look back our tech stack and see how can Near help Ethereum, right? So the way we basically framed ourselves is like, can we do something to scale Ethereum? So data availability was the first thing that we saw, because Near has a sharded design, right, which essentially just splits the blockchain into 6 different pieces for now. And we said DA is already solved by Near, so why not just serve that to rollups? That was kind of the pretty basic, knowing what we have learned over the last 2 years in Near, which is, I think, one of the best blockchains out there, and applying to rollups.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights Nuffle Labs and Near DA. In this episode, we learn about a new modular data availability layer for rollups with high throughput and low costs, leveraging Near protocol, as well as the Nuffle Fast Finality Layer powered by EigenLayer. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge Podcast possible. Introducing Flat Money, the first decentralized delta-neutral flat coin built on Base with sustainable yield that's completely untethered from legacy finance. Because DeFi needs an uncensorable based unit of currency. You can mint unit with RETH, which is held in the protocol's shared liquidity pool, where it's borrowed by leveraged traders. As a leveraged trader, you can deposit your margin collateral and go long on RETH. If you're trading in the perpetual futures market, you'll pay unit holders to open leverage positions. If you're holding unit, you'll earn yield from liquidations, borrow rate, and trading fees. Preserve your purchasing power and offset your exposure to crypto market volatility. Learn more at flat.money. Power up your portfolio by borrowing, lending, and multiplying your favorite assets, made safe and easy by the industry-leading automation tools at SUMMER.FI. SUMMER.FI offers a curated DeFi experience to access the highest quality protocols and strategies. Discover new earn strategies for your portfolio in a user-friendly app designed to filter based on the tokens you hold, the networks you transact on, the protocols you trust, and the highest available yields. Learn more today at SUMMER.FI, the best place to borrow and earn in DeFi. Tired of hopping between tabs, searching for new tokens before the hype catches on? Try MATCHA.XYZ, the DEX aggregator from 0x. Matcha connects hundreds of DEXs so you can trade millions of tokens and find fresh new drops. Matcha works out the best route to save you money on every trade. Swaps are free, and Matcha has everything you need to trade on-chain. Gasless swaps, limit orders, and cross-chain, all in one place. Search Trade Done at matcha.xyz. Catch the tide of the mainnet launch of Puffer Finance. Whether you're an Ethereum staker or an aspiring node operator, Puffer delivers the decentralization revolution with its cutting-edge technology. Start with just 2 ETH to unlock the potential of native liquid restaking and maximize your earnings. Join the movement now and anchor your stake at puffer.fi. All right, let's introduce Altan and Firat, the co-founders of Nuffle Labs. Guys, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Great to be here. Thanks for hosting us.
Same here. Thanks for hosting us.
So we're going to talk all today about what you've been working on through Nuffle Labs, the importance of data availability, how that ties into Near, why you spun out of Near in the first place. So this will be a nice introduction to Nuffle Labs and everything that you're building. So why don't we just talk a little bit more about the background of the team. So I don't know if either of you would like to kick off, but would just love to learn about the origin of Nuffle Labs.
Yeah, so I'm Altan. I have a technical background. I've done my master's in computer science. Before that, I was doing a bunch of work with robotics and virtual reality. Simulation has always been interesting to me, and that's why I joined. Pretty much like an almost like a environment that's just simulation, which is crypto, right? Everything's digital. Worked in Near protocol for 2 years, and then just eventually founded Nuffle Labs with Firat, and we can tell you guys a bit more of the story after Firat tells about his background.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, my name is Firat. I've been in crypto space for, and I think 5 years now, 6 years maybe. I have a background in distributed systems. I studied computer science. And I've been with Near Protocol for 2.5 years, where we incubated Nuffle Labs, basically a new DA project also. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to be here.
Guys, maybe this is a good opportunity just to talk a little bit about this spin out. So you've made your raise announcement. There's 2 products you're coming to market with, Near DA and NFFL. We'll talk more about those in a bit. But yeah, maybe just walk us through this spin out that you've done.
Yeah, I'll start. So the way we started doing this was like pretty much last August. And we started looking at, we studied Base, obviously. It was a very successful launch by OP Stack. We saw sort of like Celestia come to the market, and we're like, okay, let's just look back our tech stack and see how can Near help Ethereum, right? So the way we basically framed ourselves is like, can we do something to scale Ethereum? So data availability was the first thing that we saw, because Near has a sharded design, right, which essentially just says splits the blockchain into 6 different pieces for now. And we said DA is already solved by Near, so why not just serve that to rollups? That was kind of the pretty basic, knowing what we have learned over the last 2 years in Near, which is, I think, one of the best blockchains out there, and applying to rollups. So we built that entirely in a very short amount of time. That's kind of the Nuffle team. We built that, I think, Firat and team in 2-3 months or so, and launched it in November in NearCon. And that was taken pretty positively by everyone, by like the Ethereum ecosystem. It was great for people to say, hey, like, there's this other blockchain that has already DA and has block space. Why not just use that? Eventually, realized like, DA is great, but DA is just part of what the services we offer, or like the products we're building. Essentially, we said, okay, now we're seeing EigenLayer, which is an additional primitive. How do we we have given cheap rollups to the Ethereum ecosystem and maybe Bitcoin ecosystem in the future. How do we bundle that and do something great with it? So basically, the Nuffle, NFFL is the name, right? So that's where the name comes from, which is like it's this 4 letters. How do you kind of combine it into something that you can say? Nuffle just started that way, and we said, hey, like since we have already a cheap flop space, and why don't we just like aggregate state? Essentially, just say, hey, you have all these L2s. Can I serve this as a state that others can use to build multi-chain applications? So those are the 2 products that like we've started with. Starting is useful for something, to seeing something super useful like EigenLayer, and said, hey, we can actually solve this like fragmentation problem with EigenLayer and Near. So that's kind of the evolution how we have spin up, and eventually it became very clear to us. We sit in this like very interesting design space where we have knowledge from Near and applying to Ethereum, and now we want to make our own decisions, right? Basically, just saying, hey, we want to be nimble. The market is quite competitive anywhere we go, like in the DA side and the fast finality side as well. So we said, let's have our own organization where we can move faster, right? That's kind of the story of the spin out, and it was very taken positively from Ilya, the founder of Near, to everyone in the ecosystem, because everyone wanted just a new blood that come into Near and EigenLayer and kind of drive that. So we love to be that. Like, we love to provide that to both the ecosystems.
Let's stick with DA for a bit. I think it was like around 6 months ago when I first saw that like infographic going around, and you were showing kind of like the cost competitiveness that Near DA was already, I guess showing against Celestia, which was kind of like the incumbent that everybody knew of in the DA space. So fast forward, there's EigenDA, there's Avail DA, there's Celestia, there's obviously Ethereum's DA, there's your DA solution. We're in this like world of multiple DA solutions being provided. And I'm curious, maybe like in the most kind of high level way, how do you differentiate your approach from others? And really like what got me intrigued was the cost effectiveness of this versus competitors. Like how can you achieve this? And if you've got any examples for us, that would go a long way. I know for DeFi Dad and myself here.
Maybe I can take this one. So Near Protocol, one of the most important parts of Near Protocol is that when it came out, it wanted to provide a usable blockchain to the end users. And that kind of manifested in the fees structure itself. So when we were building Near DA, we looked at the current market. Most of the market, as far as I know, is using a gas fee market, where if the network becomes congested, you have to pay more for the gas fees, right? At Near Protocol, that is not the case. The case is that you pay, the gas price only goes up if more than 50% of the whole network at that specific block is congested, which you can see it happening, and then you can take some action before that happens. So 99% of the time, the gas fees are stable. So we looked at that, and then we said, there is a good opportunity to provide the same services that Near Protocol is offering to its users to the rollups. That is the reason why we can make this as affordable as possible compared to other networks. So the other selling point that, there's multiple, by the way, these are the top two, let's say, that we're talking about is the flexibility of the throughput that we can provide. Near Protocol scales with shards. It's a sharded blockchain. What does that mean? Every shard has, for now, 4 megabytes per second limit. I think 3 months ago, the total throughput of the system was 16 megabytes per second. Without anyone noticing, Near Protocol added 2 more shards, and now we're at 24 megabytes per second. So the ease of it, or the usability principle comes from the fact that it is not reflected to users, and we can scale up and down with the scalable with the sharding structure. Those are the 2 most important selling points that we're kind of comparing us towards our competitors.
So Firat talked about obviously the cost and throughput, but mainly like, even though the argument around, we should just like do DA and nothing else, we stand on the other side. Obviously, we want to sort of give a very minimal DA, but essentially use Near Protocol execution or others to build interesting primitives, right? So comes with that, we're not only just like cheap and scalable, but also we give you kind of flexibility to do something with your blob data, which others just don't do. Like Celestia is just a blockchain built for a data availability consensus, same as Avail, right? Like it's just an L1 that does that. We are a bit more on the side of like, hey, we have these great things that Near built. Why don't we just outsource that to rollups? So that's one thing we see. The other thing obviously is, look at these networks and their security. EigenD is obviously different in the sense that it's restate ETH, but Celestia is like, if you look at probably restate state TIA today, it's probably like, I would assume 400 million or 500 million or something like that. It's very low security compared to what you get with Near, right? So it's almost like, even this market is very down today, we all know, right? It's not something that we want to see, but obviously staked Near is a couple of $1 billion, right? So, and that has been the case for a long time, and we kind of sit with that. And I think you asked a good question, is like, isn't this to the bottom, right? That is like the fees to the bottom. We've seen this with block space, essentially, right? Like when Ethereum launched, it was, it started to become a very, very expensive block space, but then eventually other L1s came in, like Near itself or other ones that had a different gas model. But the idea was that we need to basically do other things that accrue value. So for that, we basically said, okay, DA is something we built, it's already using Near. Let's build something on top of it that we can value accrue to and accrue fees, right? So essentially what the Nuffle does is it provides sort of state stations for everybody that uses Near DA. Attestations meaning they're just literally saying, hey, this is the state of this rollup at this current time, right? And then we do this for Near DA, but we can also do for like OP, Arbitrum, or any of these big L2s. just by looking at their sequencer and dumping it to near DA. Now you have this running system where, you give this almost like an API for a standard API for anyone that wants to build a multi-chain application, right? What does that mean, right? So if you think about it, all the big apps today, like Uniswap, Aave, all these big apps are deployed on Ethereum, and they've now started to deploy on L2s, right? So Uniswap has their own solution, obviously, which is Uniswap X, because they can afford to, like the Summer 21, 22 protocol out there. But there's a lot of like DEXs that want to deploy to these sort of new L2s. And there's like 52 active L2s, there's like 50 more coming. And you see this to become like this 1,000 rollup space. And what we do is essentially where we value accrue is pretty much, we provide this aggregator service where people use us, right, in a very simple, almost like in a chain abstracted way, where we get in and somebody's got to swap something from OP to ARP. At the background, they use the Nuffle, but in the front end, they just use like Uniswap, right? So essentially, we can potentially, the idea is to some sort of like a value accrual there where there's money movement, there's like, a usage from, let's say you have I'm just going to give it a random example, let's say there's a far cluster L2, you have an identity and you want to do something on OP and you're doing something on that way. And we're basically Nuffle Labs is like collecting some sort of a fee structure there. So that's how we see it. Pretty much is that like DA is it's to the bottom, but you can actually build stuff on top with not only nearest flexibility, but also with the EigenLayer perspective that we have, which is essentially locking all that cryptoeconomic security plus near and give pretty much a superior experience.
To the point you made there, Altan, about like a DA wars, do you guys see any lessons in what we've seen play out with L1s and L2s? Because I think if I were to summarize it, my experience was short term when all of the new L1s and L2s were launching, it was about like having faster transactions and cheaper fees. That was like the selling point. But long term, I think what we watched play out is there was a return through bear cycles to like what's reliable, what's battle tested, what's the most secure. I'm guessing we're going to see something similar play out. Like short term, you will have a lot of competitors, but I'm thinking long term, how does Nuffle Labs, how do others in the DA wars, survive through those cycles so that you can prove that you're battle tested once you've been live long enough to be battle tested?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I sat down and obviously I'm an engineer by background, but I was in the BD team at Engineer Foundation, right, through the bear. So essentially the way people used to do, which is essentially if you're competing with all these L1s, every L1 had a grant program, right? So you have your smart contracts, you would go to a bunch of L1s and say, hey, I want to deploy you guys there. And by the way, give me a grant, right? So this was the meta pretty much in 2022, if you remember it. Essentially what ended up happening is like people started deploying applications on like Solana or Near or other ones just because, you're scalable. We've seen all these chains, they're crap, right? Hey, like we want to use you guys because we've seen that these applications obviously use these protocols for the performance. I think we'll see something similar, right? Like especially like with us and with others, is that like, we want to provide like the best security possible, which is essentially combining Near plus EigenLayer. Obviously EigenLayer is still kind of this immature ecosystem, but we're big believers in like what SureArm is doing. And we're betting our whole company into these two sort of two verticals and intersecting between these two. So we pretty much like see that a lot of rollups to come to us after sort of not only like we have a good pipeline coming in, we're pretty excited with the announcements that's coming up, but essentially people are realizing maybe I should post my data there too, because I shouldn't just post it to Celestia, but I also should post it to Near just to get the extra benefits of this protocol. The other thing is the cool thing about DA and modular design space is that, dApps basically when they deploy to a certain chain, they had to stay there. Right now, it's like eventually you can just say, "Hey, I also want to post it to." I've been posting to Celestia. I'm also going to post it Near because they have this cool thing called the Nuffle, right? So that's how I see that kind of play out in this space. It is like a bit like the L1 wars, but it also has this kind of like this duality in a sense that you can push to rollups.
Before we get back to the show, just a quick thanks to our sponsor at Mantle Network, the layer 2 that pioneered the 5th largest LST with 1.6 billion TVL called MATCHA. Since July 1st, Mantle is running a 100-day airdrop campaign called Metamorphosis to distribute a new governance token for the Mantle liquid staking protocol called Cook. The community can earn points for Cook called Powder by holding METH in Metamorphosis and simultaneously enjoying other yield and reward opportunities in the Mantle ecosystem. Users can also earn Powder by staking MNT in the Mantle Rewards Station. For more details, go to the Mantle blog at mantle.xyz/blog and follow the 0xmantle handle on Twitter for more updates.
Altan, a little bit earlier, you kind of walked us through a quick example of Nuffle there, where on the front end, a user is using Uniswap, and on the back end, Nuffle can be executing the transaction. I'm kind of just curious if you can break that down a little bit further. What does like a partner protocol have to do to opt into Nuffle? And then what is really noticed by the user on like when they're interacting with, say, a dApp that is using Nuffle under the hood, if that makes sense?
Yeah, maybe I can provide some answers here. So what does a protocol have to do to get integrated with Nuffle? For now, you're required to post your data to NearDA. So in near future, we will probably not require this because we would like to be, just like Altan said, you can post your data in multiple DA layers. That's also good for the protocol itself to create redundancy. To look at this, what would happen is that a sequencer would basically post their sequences on NearDA, and then after that, they don't have to do anything else, right? Nuffle protocol would handle all of it. Basically, a dApp would use these APIs that we're talking about, and then they would look at the transactions that are happening on one rollup, and then get that, and then send the attestations that are happening from the Nuffle validators, which are also AVSs from EigenLayer, to send it to the other rollup. The other rollup would then take that and then post that into NearDA, and then this cycle keeps going on. What does the user see? The user doesn't see anything that they're seeing other than the usual app that they're using. The main difference is the finality. So everything goes much, much faster, and there's a cryptoeconomic security behind these attestations that are coming from AVS. So that is the two only things that has to happen. One, a rollup has to, additionally, if they want to, or solely, need to put their sequences in their blobs in NearDA, and then the applications who are using Nuffle protocol would take the attestations and then send them into different inboxes. Let's call them inboxes into different rollups.
Appreciate that. Altan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that is quite this amazing example of how one can use. But just to give you guys some sort of like the world that we will live in, right? So we have a bunch of L2s, right? Like, for example, Lance is an L2. There's a Degen L3, right? There's like a bunch of DeFi rollups just popping up. A bunch of like, I guess even you see like just centralized. I've seen a KYC enabled rollup before. Like, I've never seen that before. They're apparently going to use us on the NearDA side. Like, there's all these different sort of rollups popping up, and the way you can only like kind of build the railroads is kind of like you kind of have to like have this new primitive where you just say, hey, I want to do something on rollup A and I want something on rollup B. So you can have applications where they do their social profile taken from this sort of rollup and doing something DeFi on the other one, right? So that's kind of a new thing, which essentially was really hard to do with L1s because you can't have like a DSOL launching and like just like, how do I do that, right? So I need to build a bridge between them. So this makes quite sort of like this fragmentation that everybody talks about, makes it very, very, makes it very programmable in some sense, right? Like programmable between chains. And it comes with EigenLayer security and also near security, which I think somebody hasn't done before. So that's why we're excited, and we will see probably sort of a large amount of applications doing a bunch of cool stuff.
Guys, in terms of near DA and the NFFL, if I'm saying that correctly, how does that...
Nuffle is easier.
The Nuffle, there you go. Yeah, much easier. How does that drive value back to near protocol? I think this is a question I asked you, Altan, when we first met, just talking about Nuffle Labs, because I was thinking, okay, so near has you as a team spinning out. I absolutely see the value in it for you as a team, but I was immediately wondering, like, okay, well, clearly this has got to bring value back to the near protocol. So yeah, how do you summarize that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so we're using Near's block space. Right, so we are actually near DA will still be paid by the near token, right? So that's kind of the token that you acquire if you want to post data on near. And the other thing is, like, now that, I mean, this is basically, this blockchain becomes a sort of a interesting place where everybody dumps their like rollup sequence, right? I mean, that's kind of how we see it. Eventually, just like this, near becomes not only just an L1, but also where the blobs live and where all these like L2s are, the L2 infra is happening, right? So like, that's why we think, we have a very symbiotic relationship with the foundation and protocol itself. And eventually, there's even basically just almost like you're re-executing the state transitions, obviously with EigenLayer, but also near, right? And then getting all the value accrual happen in both of these two, and essentially on top of this, it's happening on the Nuffle, right? So, no, we're quite excited about that. I think, we're now contributors to Near Protocol, which is also we were core contributors. Now we're like contributing in a sense of like the roadmap and everything. So that's quite exciting. But I think in the short, yeah, people are still paying like the block transactions with Near.
Yeah, one thing that I might want to add there is that essentially your rollups are, if you're using near DA, your rollups are secured by near validators, because your sequences have consensus, and the consensus is driven by near validators, which means the total value secured by near protocol also goes up with the rollups posting their data on near. So that kind of creates this new metric that is a little bit different than TVL, because now in the modular world, you're not just looking at the TVL, but you're also looking at how much total value you are securing through your protocol. So that is one of the value that we're kind of providing back to your protocol, apart from the gas fees.
Yeah, that's very cool. I hadn't thought about that, but that's almost like, that's a similar metric we use for, kind of comparing oracles right now. So yeah, that's very interesting. Something else I want to ask you guys about, not sure how much you can share, but curious, any other like partnerships or teams you're working with that you'd like to highlight? Maybe somebody that you're working with already that's already onboarded to Near DA and Nuffle, or anybody else you can kind of tease up for the future?
Yeah, so our first sort of mainnet customer has been RSS3. So RSS3 is a rollup that's specifically for like any open AI agents or open AI like frameworks. So they actually have a TVL that's like, if you look at LTP today, it's like top 17 or top 18. So they've been using us. And the reason why they switched was because obviously you're doing a lot of transactions on the rollup if you're doing any, AI agent transactions. And they were seeing quite like, they were paying Ethereum call data, not blob data, around like $1,000, and now we saw that to drop to like $10, let's say. Like, it's a very minimal reduction if you think about it as a business owner, right? Like, are you paying $365K per year to operate your rollup, or are you just paying like, I don't know, $3,000, which is less than what our rollup as a service charge over a month, right? So that was quite exciting to see. We have like, obviously, Fractal is like Sam is a big supporter of us, and we love Sam in terms of, I love just his vision and into Frax and how he thinks about it. We have some like product work going there with them as to not only on the near DA side, but also like maybe bring something interesting for Frax. So that's in talks. Obviously, IOTX already mentioned us a little bit socially last week. It's been under the radar, but any deep in projects that will sort of want to use want to scale, let's say with Throughput, we will be providing DA for them, and also the IOTX 2.0, which is their sort of this modular infra and the chain that they're building. So those are the ones that we have excited. We actually have way more pipeline, but currently it's still in the kind of early stages of that. So don't want to share here before. Just don't want to jinx it. That's kind of the spirit we have. But yeah, we're quite excited. We have the DA pipeline, but also obviously eventually we'll start dumping the OP sequence to near DA and then doing NFFL, right? Then we have like these connected networks that we can essentially start sharing eventually that allows people to come in and build.
Teller is a decentralized protocol that enables anyone to borrow or lend using any Ethereum asset. You can think of a Teller loan as a DeFi cash advance, one where you can use any of your favorite ERC20 tokens as collateral to get an instant USDC loan. Discover the power of a DeFi cash advance today at Teller.org.
At Moonbeam, we're building a world where the wonders of decentralized technology are accessible to everyone. We're advancing Web3 integration through product enhancements, funding for innovation, and investment in our partner ecosystem. Our product roadmap includes ZK initiatives, tokenomics updates, and 8x Throughput. Our $10 million innovation fund invests in startups that deliver cutting-edge solutions for RWAs and Web3 gaming, and our partner ecosystem continues to grow through grants and incentives. Moonbeams is delivering frictionless user and builder experiences to create the future of the internet on-chain. Join us by participating in the Moonrise campaign today.
We had Kendall from Proximity Labs on the podcast recently, and he was talking about chain signatures and kind of blowing our minds with that. And one of the quick segments we went over was like, what new apps or primitives can emerge from this new infra? And I thought that was really interesting to kind of hear him riff on that. So I'd be curious, like, what you guys see of any new, apps that maybe couldn't exist before, or new primitives that can now exist due to maybe this combination of near DA and Nuffle.
So one of the most important things about getting your fees lower or providing a high throughput is that now you can do things on chain on an L2 that you couldn't do before, much cheaper and in a much higher throughput. As near DA kind of scales with your protocol, you would be able to run these say on-chain gaming, right? Say very high throughput AI applications. You would be able to run these through a protocol like NearDA. That's one. For Nuffle, the Nuffle, what you could do now that you couldn't do before is seamless cross-chain transactions, seamless cross-rollup transactions. Before, you either have to wait for the finality of Ethereum, or you have to kind of trust an optimistic bridge that they would actually fund you and then they would get their money back and then there's no challenging and whatnot. With Nuffle, what you can do is you can seamlessly create transactions or seamlessly create experiences, let's put it that way, between two different rollups, eventually maybe between two different chains, not just rollups. And then you can do it in a way that is backed up by a very high cryptoeconomic security.
Guys, I think this is a great place for us to start to wrap up. So I want to remind our listeners that they can learn more about Nuffle Labs at nuff.tech. They should follow Nuffle Labs on Twitter. That's the mothership account for updates on Nuffle Labs. They can follow Altan's personal account here at Mr. Altan Tutar. And then I've got Firat's account, which we'll put into our show notes. It's a bunch of letters and numbers there, which you can read there. So anyways, guys, thank you for joining us. It was great just to get a baseline here on this introduction to Nuffle Labs. Obviously, we're super excited for Near DA to go fully live. That said, there was some mention of this like Nuffle trilogy in some of the early marketing materials that you had. I'm curious, like we've got two clear product offerings that we've talked through. What is the third product? If you can tell us anything about it, or I'm not sure if that's top secret still.
Yeah, we'll tease it a little bit. So I guess like the social intern is me. So like I'm writing all the pretty much social stuff. We don't have any marketing guys, so literally it's me in Twitter like writing all that stuff. And we really love the pun, like the pun around Nuff, right? Like it was kind of that's how we started. So just to wrap up, really, Near DA is like it makes rollups cheaper, right? So that's kind of we've started gives security from Near and makes rollups cheaper. Now, as we talked about, the fees goes to almost like about to go to zero, just like block space. Now, what do we do, right? So we have this like crazy blow of like L2s, and there needs to be some sort of like linking between them and make it programmable for people to do cool things, right? Like cross-chain applications, as we talked about, which is essentially saying you have a lens profile, you want to dump something on Fractal, you should be able to do that. All right, so that's kind of the second product. And the third product is essentially saying, hey, we need, like, we have enough security, so what do we do with that, right? Essentially just enough security saying we have like security all over the place. EigenLayer is obviously the start and where the core things happen, but can we sort of like aggregate security and do something interesting with it? So I'll leave that with that, but essentially the third product is like Nuff security, right? So, or like Nuff protocol, but that's still kind of in the works, and front-end team and us in general just cooking internally. But the current focus is fully on like 1 and 2, getting that like market share.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And for future episodes of the Edge podcast, please check out our link tree at edge_pod.